Hi, everyone. I'm Rick Barron, your host, and welcome to my podcast, That's Life, I Swear. Men have been told all their lives to man up, be strong, and that seeing a doctor for yearly checkups is a sign of weakness. Well, it turns out there's another fear men have, and that's being advised to see a therapist. And the phobia of seeing a therapist is interference with their manhood. Let's jump into this. When I launched my first podcast on May 1st, 2022, I had no idea I would receive so many downloads right out of the gate. And it was a topic that centered around why men are afraid to see their doctor. I received a lot of positive feedback on the episode and I'm very grateful for that. It was also followed by requests to do another podcast in a different area of the medical field that men fear. As I did my research, I came across a word that captures men's fear of seeing a doctor or seeking advice. It's a phobia called iatrophobia. Now, I provided a link in my script that you can open up and take a look-see and see what the definition means. But it captures everything. Seeing a doctor for an annual physical to see if anything is creeping up on a man is one thing, but offer advice to see a therapist and the door slams shut. See a therapist? Are you kidding me? You could hear the fingernails screeching down the chalkboard. So why is it that men slam the door to seek help from a therapist? The excuses run all over the place. I came across a medical website that offered some very interesting stats. Now let me know if these excuses sound familiar. I'm too embarrassed. I don't want to admit I need support. I don't want to have to appear that I'm weak. Now there's more to this list, but those are just a few of them. Looking at this list takes me back to my very first episode. Men are fearful of a doctor telling them they have or may have a medical problem. Okay, that's fair. But when it's recommended to a man that he ought to see a therapist for why they may feel depressed or have high anxiety, fear doesn't enter the picture. Instead, it comes down to a man thinking their manhood, their masculinity, is going to be tampered with. Medical health experts have long known that men are more likely to die by suicide, drug overdose, and alcohol-related deaths, despite women having twice the rate of depression diagnosis. And data shows that nearly 80% of suicides are among men, with males over 75. There are other mental health issues for seeking help from a therapist, and some of these issues include anger management, addiction, intimacy issues, domestic violence, midlife crisis, grief or loss, and anxiety or depression. Now, such a disparity in care has experts searching for ways to reach men who may be very reluctant to discuss their mental health and seek help. The American Psychological Association released guidelines for practitioners working with men and boys in 2018. Interestingly, the report took the approach of reframing therapy as an opportunity for strength and well-being rather than a treatment for illness. I think that's the key there. While researching this topic, I came across a Dr. Sally Spencer Thomas, president and co-founder of United Suicide Survivors International. Now, over time, she's interviewed many men who have attempted suicide but have survived. During the interviews, she found a trend building. The trend was the standard communication around mental health, which shouldn't have been a surprise. The men interviewed felt that the source of their problems was an overwhelming world, such as stressful jobs, financial concerns, and they didn't consider themselves mentally unwell. After reviewing the results, Dr. Spencer Thomas felt it was best to modify the messaging and language used to discuss mental health and therapy to reach men with this thinking. Additionally, it's also essential to note that men who work in traditionally blue-collar jobs, such as mining, construction, agriculture, they have the highest rates of suicide. Never would have thought that. Now, this highlights that there's a need to tailor outreach and support for men in these fields. Now, having said that, as I was combing the internet for information on this topic, I did come across a website that was, shall I say, quite different. The name of the website is Man Therapy. The purpose of the Man Therapy campaign is to provide men approaching crisis and their loved ones a place to go and learn more about men's mental health, examine their own, and consider a wide array of actions that will put them on the path to treatment and recovery. The message is that all men should be aware of their mental health and treat it like they would a broken leg and strive to get better. What I found interesting about this website is its approach to find a way to reach those most at risk for suicide or other things and not wanting help from a therapist. It's a different outlet for men to not be afraid to share their inner feelings without fear of losing their masculinity, manhood, if you will. The website host is Dr. Mahogany. Now, he's very good at using ideas of masculinity to bridge concepts that help men reshape the conversation of mental health. Now, there are moments he throws in humor to cut through stigma, and he tackles issues like depression, divorce, and suicidal thoughts head on. About 18 months after the website was released, Dr. Sally Spencer Thomas wrote a white paper about the website, its outreach and impact on men's health problem. Now, it's only about 10 pages and is a very fast read, and I provided a link on my website for you to check it out. I think you'll find it very interesting. So why do men fear therapists and think seeing one will result in losing their manhood? Well, there's various reasons. One major reason is that society has put stereotypes and expectations on men that they should be strong and able to handle their own problems independently. This notion that men should not express being vulnerable or seek help can create a sense of shame or embarrassment for men struggling with their mental health issues. Now, as I said, men are expected to be strong, independent, and self-reliant. In some cultures, men are expected to be the primary providers and protectors for their families, which can make it very difficult for them to admit to needing help or to take time away from their responsibilities to seek therapy. Men are also hesitant to seek therapy as there is the stigma that it focuses around mental health. Many men believe that treatment is only for those people who are crazy or weak and may be ashamed to admit that they are struggling emotionally. Some men may fear being judged for seeking help. Another reason why men may not seek help is due to the perception that it's a feminine activity. Men may view therapy as more appropriate for women or something that only women do. This perception can make men feel very uncomfortable or very awkward about seeking help from a woman therapist. It's important to note that these fears and stereotypes are not true, and that therapy can be very beneficial for men. Therapy can help men understand their feelings and behaviors, develop coping mechanisms, improve relationships, and work through past traumas. Now, what are some recommendations that one could do to encourage a man to seek help by seeing a therapist? Some of the things I have found, and there are quite a few, but I'll share some of them. One thing you can do is sharing stories of men who have benefited from therapy or mental health treatment. We can then help break down the stigma and demonstrate that seeking help is a sign of strength. It's not a weakness. I think another way to look at this is that therapy can help men understand that taking care of their mental health is just as important as taking care of their physical health. It's also important to address any misconceptions or myths that men may have about therapy or mental health treatment. For example, some men may believe that therapy is only for people with severe mental illness, when in fact therapy can be very helpful for a wide range of issues. Another challenge is that men may not identify or recognize the symptoms of mental health issues. So it's important to educate men about the signs and symptoms of mental health so they can recognize when they need help and seek it out and not be afraid of being questioned. So we need to address this disparity in care and support for men's mental health, and this includes reframing the language and messaging used to discuss the topic, creating tailored outreach and support for men in high-risk fields, and therefore creating a safe and understanding environment for men to talk about their health issues, be it mental or not. By addressing these issues, we can help men assess the help and support they need. So what can we learn from this story? What's the takeaway? Education. Changing the language used around mental health, making therapy less intimidating, and recognizing that seeking help is not a sign of weakness are all approaches that can help break down these barriers and encourage men to prioritize their mental health. Again, seeking help is not a sign of weakness. if anything, is a sign of strength. Well, there you go. For further information regarding the material covered in this episode, I invite you to visit my website, which you can find on either Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, for show notes calling out key pieces of content mentioned in the episode transcript. As always, I thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe here or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. See you soon.